are your hosts, Sean Phillips, Andy Van Beber, and Travis Kirkendall.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are live. It is, what day is it? Oh my God, it is the end of the month. It is November 29th.
Yeah.
The year is 2023. Where has this year gone? Just a couple, just not too long ago, it felt like you would, I remember the days of you could go out, without a mask on and be charged for murder. I miss those days. I miss those days when you could go on Facebook and if someone saw that you sat 8 foot within someone, they were like, you and Charles Manson are the same person.
And just go ahead and carve
you might not be
into my
you
forehead.
might not be the one with the knife, but you are just as bad. Man, I wonder how hell is treating old Uncle Charlie.
I want to tell you something.
I wonder how he's doing.
No, I'm sure he has his daily pineapple up the old cahoot, and
do you think that it maybe like in hell, obviously aside from it sucking, most days, I wonder if ever like is hell for Jeffrey Epstein? Is it just like having to sit next to Charlie? Is that what hell is? And then Jeff tries to reminisce about all the young Tang, and then Charles just won't shut up. Is like, oh God, if I could have Hillary kill me again, I would.
And Helter Skelter playing the whole time in the background, and
oh God,
I'm well aware of where Charlie is and what he's doing. And did you ever see Sandler's movie Little Nicky? Did you ever watch that?
Yes.
Yeah.
God, been a while. I actually think when I watched that last, it was on VHS.
Oh yeah, because that's like one of those guilty pleasure movies that I watch that you're like you laugh at, and it's not. I know it's not biblically correct or anything like that, but I just love seeing Hitler get a pineapple shoved up his butt every day, and
Yeah, there's a show that I really like. It's a guilty pleasure show of mine, and it's called it's an Adult Swim show. It's done now. It's been off the air for a while. Episodes are like 15 minutes. You definitely can't watch it with any of the kids, but it's called Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell, and basically it follows this demon named Gary who works in marketing for Satan. And I think what's so funny about the show, for me at least, is because every day sucks for them. There's even when they think that Satan's becoming a cool boss, he'll make them lick Cerberus's asshole. It's just it's one of it's one of those shows that's really, really funny, and
that's
yeah,
fantastic.
it's definitely
fantastic.
worth. But the thing what sucks about it, and this is a different topic for a different day because it's not what we're covering today, but it's one of those things that's it's not lost media, but it used to be on Hulu, no longer on Hulu. It got moved to Max. It's no longer on Max. Now the only way that you can watch it is on the Adult Swim app, where you can stream. They have marathons that just play it, or you can watch the episodes with ads. But it's it used to be my
oh man, that sounds great.
my white noise at night. I would put it on when going
Just
to bed on and now I can't.
Oh, I tell you what, I used to. There were a lot of. I hate that Cartoon Network and Adult Swim isn't what it used to be. Anymore this stuff. When Adult Swim first came on, and I have an action figure of it. Actually, they used to do the show called Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and it was just I loved that show, and I can't even find that anywhere anymore. So
no, I remember one of my favorite things about. One of my favorite things about Adult Swim was a show that I did not watch as a kid that I wish I would have, but it wasn't actually when I was a kid wasn't popular anymore. But as far as a TV medium goes, it's a great show, and that's Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse. It's actually a brilliant show.
Lawrence Fishburne got his start on that show, and I'm trying to think who else got their start on that show. He was what was his name? Cowboy. Yeah, but anyway, go ahead.
And well, what's crazy is like that show, um, and rest in peace, Paul Rubens, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that show was on Adult Swim. They put that show on Adult
Was it
Swim.
really? I didn't know
For and it was like a mixture of things because there was the controversy about Paul Rubens because he got caught in an adult movie theater,
yes,
doing what you would do in an adult movie theater.
Himself, yes.
But I think it was like a little bit of that, but also it's a show. Adult Swim, had got to the point where it was like they made television show for people that were tripping on acid, and so like they kind of put Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse on there for people that would be on acid and would watch or high and would watch Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse. But that's how I got introduced to the show and was like, I see why this was such a big show when it was, because again, like I said, when I was a kid, it was not. But it was brilliant. I mean, like the set designs were amazing.
Yes.
Paul Rubens was obviously amazing. The characters that he created on that show were amazing. So it's definitely one of those shows that it's I'd love to go back and rewatch now, even with my kids, because it's a great show.
I watched that show. So that used to be on CBS. In CBS's morning lineups, Saturday morning lineup, of course, I watched it. They would start with the old school. They would do Looney Tunes in the morning, and like 7 to 8:30, 9 o'clock. Then they would do Disney did this thing. It was not Disney. Muppets did this thing called Muppet Babies, which actually was because they would intermix in like movie clips and stuff like that. And then they went into Pee Wee's Playhouse. And I mean, I watched Pee Wee's Playhouse, just all the, that's the word of the day. What, yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, those are definitely good memories. And, that does take me back a lot.
I think that's what's it's a lost medium now. And you know what, there's a couple shows that still do it well. Obviously, so I don't know about you, but for whatever reason, and I think the best answer I've gotten from her was I didn't like it. But so I didn't really, my dad wouldn't have given a shit. But my mom really didn't let my sister or I watch Sesame Street as a kid. They didn't really watch. I don't think she enjoyed it. So it was just like one of those ones like we weren't allowed to watch. And so, but I see it now on PBS, and it's a great show because those shows where that little mixture of live action and puppeteering, it's just not as common. And so it's one of those like lost arts and kids shows where there's nothing wrong with animation. I watched so much animation growing up as a kid,
right.
But like, even so, there's a show on PBS. My daughter loves it. It's called Daniel Tiger. Daniel Tiger is an amazing show.
Yep.
But the thing, it hurts because as much as I love Daniel Tiger, it's not Mr. Rogers.
It's not Mr. Rogers.
It's not
Mr. Rogers'
neighborhood.
Inspired by Mr. Rogers, but yeah, Mr.
Rogers. And so that's Mr. Rogers is another show where he was like the Bob Ross for children.
Yes.
Of that this
perfectly.
gentle soul that what's crazy about Mr. Rogers, and maybe you can attest to this because you might have someone like this, but I feel like for some kids, like especially shows where Mr. Rogers, where the level of famous that he was in broadcast television for children was like Mr. Rogers was almost like a household member. He was someone that lived in your home, who I've talked to adults, I've talked to people that are like, I confided in Mr. Rogers.
Yes,
like
you looked at him like he was like, you looked at him as he wasn't the guy on TV. You looked at him as, hey, it's time to because he just some of the lessons that he had. The puppet segment he had on there was called The Land of Make Believe, and
Hmm.
as a child I always thought that was the best part of the show, because I think he did like 95% of the puppeting himself on
Sure.
that, the voices and everything on like that, and then just all the different things that he did. And if you and for people who don't know a lot about Fred Rogers, is you watch a movie that Tom Hanks did called Will You? I think it's called Will You Be My Neighbor, and it was the life. It was just basically this biographic, kind of a late. It was based off of the story of this guy who interviewed Rogers, later on in life and everything, toward the end of his career, and really a really good movie, and it really caused me to reminisce. And I mean, Tom Hanks knocked it out of the park. But it was yeah, right there. You are right. That is a lost medium, and there were good shows that my kids, but just you
Do you
almost
know it might have not been around whenever your kids at their age, but a show that I saw that was like a puppet show that was amazing. It was on PBS. It was called Between the Lions. Did they
no.
ever? So
Mm-mm.
it's basically about this like library, and it had a bunch of animal puppets and stuff like that. It was a PBS show. It was another really good one. Reminded me a lot of like Reading Rainbow,
Mm.
and
LeVar
Reading
Burton. Yep,
Rainbow
yep.
was,
LeVar Burton was, and that's another show I watched.
oh, so good. Yeah, no, Reading Rainbow was uh isn't to this day like the theme song, the intro for everything to
Look up in the
Reading Rainbow.
sky.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can
yeah,
go
so
twice as
good. And
high.
it's like another character that I know for a lot of people in the same way that Fred Rogers was, that I've heard that was like quite literally some people's father figure. It was Uncle Phil from
Oh, Fresh Prince of
the
Bel
Fresh
Air.
Prince, yeah, Fresh
Yep,
Prince of Bel
yep.
Air. Was the for a lot of folks, was quite literally like that father figure to them, where like when he would talk to Will, a lot of people would be like, oh, I get what he's what he's saying. He's not just speaking to Will, he's speaking to me.
Well,
um
and I find it kind of, I don't know, and maybe it's just because I'm getting older. I don't like that there's not, to me, and maybe you can remind me, or I just don't watch enough TV. There's just not those. I don't think there's those larger than life iconic figures that really are kind of, I don't want to say a moral compass, but just a voice of, pardon the pun, but the voice of reason. And like the
mhm.
Fred Rogers. And I go way a generation before you. I mean, when I was a toddler, my first memory of shows that my parents let me watch was this guy called Captain Kangaroo.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and Captain Kangaroo was, he went off. I was born in '74, and I vaguely remember him. I think he went off like in 1980, and that was my guy. And then you know Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was already going. Sesame Street. We had the Electric Company too. The Electric Company,
Hmm. Oh
which
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah, yeah.
not Samuel Jackson. Well, Samuel Jackson, I think actually. Well, no, he wasn't. Who's Morgan Freeman? Morgan Freeman got his start on the
Mm.
Electric Company, and just all these guys who but those were those live action shows. Now there was another '70s, another one that was called The Great Space Coaster, which was another just
Oh
crazy.
yeah, yes, the Great Space Coaster.
uh,
Wow,
That
yeah,
that's that
that's
was
one.
you want to talk about like acid trippy kind of
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
great space
I
coaster.
think Family Guy actually has a great bit
Yes, they do.
about
Yes.
that. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. He's
Yep.
like, yeah.
Yep.
No,
So
because when you said it, it actually made me think. Um, I think with how media is absorbed today. So this might sound silly, but aside from like aside from like adult TV shows and characters that take over, people that are winning Oscar, or not Oscars, but the Emmys
Emmys,
for
yeah, big time.
best drama, stuff like that.
Yep.
When I think of the last generation of like, Again, because they are very different. This character, it is not so much your Fred Rogers. It's not your Uncle Phil's, but if in my memory, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it's just because I've aged out of it, but in my opinion, there's two individuals that I can think of that I feel like personally made a lasting impact on the younger generations, like livelihoods, and the two that I can think of, and again, very different than Fred Rogers and Uncle Phil, but is one second, but is, as silly as it sounds, Miley Cyrus.
Yes.
From Hannah Montana.
Hannah Montana.
And then I think one that not quite as big, but one that was in that same era was Selena Gomez with the Wizards show.
Wizards of Waverly Place.
But like the reason why I say that was because by the time that those shows had ended, we were really diving into where media by people from ages 9 to 13, we'll even say 14, the media was not so much being absorbed through Disney Channel, through Cartoon Network, through things like that. It was being absorbed through YouTube.
Yep.
So that's when YouTubers became this,
right, the age of the influencer. So.
Mm-hmm. And so I think that, like, for kids shows especially, like, this is not a knack on any kid show that's out there today. And this is probably more of a good thing, because I think it's a good thing. And you'll understand how I'm saying this, but like, it's a good thing that we'll never have, that I hope we never have a Britney Spears situation again, where you have a extremely famous girl from a young age who, the moment that she turns like 18, becomes a hypersexualized individual,
hooker,
which causes a lot of like problems, clearly.
Right.
And like, same thing like we saw with Miley Cyrus, where it's like, childhood icon, turned 18 and became a super, 18, 19, 20, became a super sexualized individual.
Right.
And I think that those days, at least I would hope, are like, I can't think of any off the top of my head. And
past that, no, I cannot. No.
Yeah, like
you mentioned those two,
which is a good thing.
Well, but think about what the kids, the stuff that they're. I mean, and I think it's a stretch to call it entertainment, because my kids watch these. They have these YouTube shows that they. And again, I'll toss that term around loosely. Shows that are. I mean. That these people crank these things out once a week, and no, not major disrespect, but the one that comes to my mind is Darman. Darman tries to do these shows. I believe he's second generation Indian immigrant here. His parents, he's a Christian guy, but he makes these, what happens when the bully and and tries to teach a life lesson, but they're just terrible actors, and the production quality is just, you can tell that it's like they do it together in a week's time, and to call it a show, because my kids will, some of the kids I have like now in high school are like, well, hey, I remember watching such and such a guy. Oh yeah, I remember him. But there's not I think it's kind of sad that they won't have the same thing in their childhood like we had, when we can say, oh, we had our Fred Rogers, we had the Bob Ross, we had the Captain Kangaroo, we had, LeVar Burton reading Rainbow, we had, the level.
You want to know another thing that sucks too? Like, that? I hate this for kids, because you can get media anywhere. That you can watch any show in the world that you want while taking a shit nowadays. But there was something special. There was something special about Saturday mornings, getting a bowl of cereal, chilling in your pajamas,
Say it.
And then for me, at my age, it was WD Kids, to where you sat on, you played your Saturday morning cartoons, your Yu-Gi-Ohs, your Pokemon, your Dragon Ball Z, this huge lineup of Saturday morning cartoons like the CW. There was nowhere else to get it, and
Animaniacs,
that
Pinky and the
oh
Brain. Yeah.
yes, and like, well, even so, one of my core memories that I will never forget. So growing up, when I lived in Iowa, so before I moved to Missouri,
Mm-hmm.
my dad was a manager of sorts at a homeless shelter in a town called Dubuque, Iowa, where I grew up. It's called the Rescue Mission.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that a couple, like 1 or 2 days out of the week, um, usually sometimes after school, I would head over there at least once a week. Sometimes would help serve dinner there. There was
Mm-hmm.
a thrift shop in the downstairs, so I'd walk around that. But what I really remember was I would get there a little bit after school. And around the time I'd get there, there was one room on the level that my dad worked on that had a TV. It was like a TV lounge. And usually there'd be, 10, 20 like homeless guys that were living at the rescue mission at the time, watching the news or watching something on TV. But whenever I would get there, that was when I got there around the hour that Scooby Doo was on.
Right.
So I would get there, and then they would see that I was showing up, and they say, "Oh, Sean's here," and they'd flip it to Scooby Doo, and then I would chill while my dad was in his office right behind me. I would chill in this lounge area with, these homeless guys that were there watching Scooby Doo.
Yeah.
And so, things like, obviously there's still shows like Cartoon Network still exists, Disney Channel still exists. There's
Yeah.
still shows that are there, but
Right.
even we talk about wrestling a lot, and it's crazy to think about how in the late 90s, it was not uncommon for wrestling to be doing demographics of between 8 and sometimes even
Yeah.
15 million
Before
people on a Monday.
Right.
And it's like, yesterday Raw had one of the best nights it's had in a long time at 1.8 million viewers.
Thank you,
1.8. But what's
Thank you,
crazy
CM Punk.
is that the WWE makes, and that's, if you really think about it, that's for all intents and purposes like 15% of their audience that they had 20 years ago. And they're making more money today than they ever have as a company. And that's just because of how different things are.
Well,
There's more money to be made online and through streaming services.
Because back when I was a kid, and I would sneak watch this. My parents, you want to talk about a show that my parents didn't let me watch. So WWE used to have this show called Saturday Morning Superstars.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like one of like the production company that you used to work for. They would they would do one of their live shows, and they would do this. It was like Saturday at 11, and it was from 11 to 12, and you would have it had Vincent McMahon and Jesse the Body Ventura doing the play-by-play of the week, and at the time I knew, of course, I didn't know anything about. I mean, I would the shows that I grew up on in those days. I mean, yeah, because they made it to where it was like you had Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, the Iron Sheik. What was the Russian guy's name? Boris.
I know who you're talking about. I don't know why I'm blanking.
Can't think of it. But you had him, and then you had Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and you had all these guys who just and that's what where I learned. My dad's like, "Oh, that's all fake." And I was like, "Well, you think, Dad? Do you think?" I mean, even at 10 years old, I was a smart ass, and I was like, "You think I know they're not hitting him with a chair and just or whatever?" But no, yeah. You mentioned Raw, just a little bit of a transition there, but first time ever, I watched Survivor Series this last.
Oh, great! Yeah.
And I never knew of what war games were or anything like that. And I was very shocked and surprised to see. I mean, I knew it was I think it was at Chicago at the Rosemont Horizon, I think is where it was at.
And, yeah, it's definitely in Chicago.
But and when I was not expecting CM Punk to come out and And I just thought, rest in peace, AEW. Thank you very much for your years of service. You've lost the last major talent that you've had, and so that was it. But that War Games format, I thought that was a class. That was, I mean, it was kind of like a mix of, I don't know. I guess you kind of had a little bit of the Hell in the Cell element, but not quite. I liked it. It was good. It was in the 2 rings.
Yeah. So I don't want to speak out of tune here, but I'm 99.9% positive that it was Dusty Rhodes that created War Games.
It was. They mentioned that. Yes.
Yeah. And so Triple H has been, when he was spearheading NXT, he did takeovers, and they did War Games once or twice a year with NXT.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have Peacock, I encourage you to go back and watch some of the first War Games matches they did on NXT, because I mean this past one was solid. The first ones that they were doing back when NXT was kicking them off are insane. Truthfully, if you go back, any of the NXT takeovers from their inception up until about 3 years ago were just some of the best put together, produced wrestling events I've ever seen. I went to one with my good friends Hank and Josh. We actually went to Chicago. We did a weekend. It was amazing. It was right when I got back from deployment. We did a full weekend of wrestling. We went to a live event on a Friday night this was before, was SmackDown even back yet? I don't remember. Friday night, we went to a live event in Peoria. And then Saturday, we were in Chicago for War Games. Sunday, we were there for Money in the Bank. And then we went back Monday. And not War Games, but TakeOver. And that TakeOver event was amazing. Mm-hmm. I mean, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa in a street fight. It was like one of the, 1 5-star matches of recent years that WWE had. And it was Triple H definitely knows what he's doing.
Oh yeah.
When it came to NXT, and he's been doing a great job.
Since he's taken over, I thought he's done it. And holy crap, Randy Orton looked about as crisp.
Jocked.
God,
he was jocked.
Holy
yeah, he's
cow.
been out for a while. He had back surgery.
Yeah, that triple fusion back or whatever they said it was.
Mm-hmm.
Holy.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, he came out
and he looked crisp.
Beefy.
Oh my God. Mm-hmm. I was like,
yeah, and people forget, like, Randy Orton is a legit, like, 6'4", 6'5". Like, he's a big old dude, and added some good mass, because he was still cut. Like, I need whatever macaroni he's eating, because
and another one who came back when Carlito came back, I was like, Carlito was this. I was like, I always thought of Carlito as this little twerp who was. I think back to Royal Rumble back, and I think it was 2015. I think was the last time I remember when John Cena had come back from his torn pec or whatever it was that he had.
Oh, that was like 2008.
Yeah, I went back on YouTube and I watched that the other day, and I was like, God, he was small, and now just like but and that again. Within my adulthood, because and I said this last week, that's something else I look back on with TV with fond memories, because my wife always calls it, and she kind of just rolls her eye, but she calls it soap opera for men, and it is, and I like, I mean, I like the storyline, and I like, and I'm not doing this to toot your horn too much, but when you invited me and Edelman, and we came there and watched it, I mean. Just the production, I'm seeing it on a local level, because I have a deeper appreciation for it now, to see these guys who come up through the ranks and how they came up. But to watch these shows now, and I can think back, and I can think of, God, I still wish I could remember that Russian's name, but I still remember when Hulk Hogan wrestled Iron Sheik for the heavyweight title, and just the whole. How that and he made, and Hulk Hogan had made the cover, the first professional wrestler to make the cover of Sports Illustrated,
Yeah.
And to this day, I
Oh,
wish
are you thinking of Nikolai Volkov?
Nikolai Volkov. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He'd always come in waving that Russian flag, and then but
That's another like uh, a funny thing about just wrestling from back then of the the very staunch nationality and proud patriotism of
well, I mean,
the day.
we had. Well, I remember when Desert Storm was going on. Of course, he was on Sergeant Slaughter. Started on GI Joe,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Correct.
then they find. I don't know what the guy's real name is, but when he came over and then they found the perfect guy, who was Sergeant Slaughter from GI Joe, and they brought him over to. He brought him over. I was like, they nailed it, you know. And then when Sergeant Slaughter would go heel, good guy, heel, good guy, heel, good guy, drove me nuts. And then when Desert Storm kicked in, it was just like, okay, he's back to being the good guy. The Iron Sheik was older then, and they had another Middle Eastern wrestler. And then after the 9/11 attacks, a few years after that, they had another Middle Eastern guy who had, he had a little sidekick that wore a white suit, and I can't think of him. But
Davari,
Davari
something.
Yeah, and of course,
yeah. They I remember like during that time. Yeah, they had an angle with him and like the Undertaker.
Yep.
And then they scrapped it, and they unfortunately that guy lost his career, even though he was just playing a character. But it was like, we can't put this guy on TV right now due to the state of affairs.
Yeah.
Well,
in the world. And I think that so they have to reevaluate that when they do television. But definitely. But anyway. Wow, that took longer than I thought it would. But
no, it's okay because it's spearheaded into a different kind of episode than what we kind of had lined up. But I think that's okay with our good friend Travis not here today. I think it's okay that we kind of did a little bit more of a relaxed fit,
but
for this conversation.
A couple of things that we want to talk about. We still got some time, but I wanted to bring up. I shared this week, actually today, and the Division of Bureau of Statistics released their, I don't know why they're a month behind, but they released their October report for our good old inflationary rates for this month. And surprisingly, and I want your opinion to tell me what you think. But according to the the Department of Bureau of Statistics, whatever it's called, that the consumer price index is now down to inflationary rate is now, they got it at 3.2%. 3.2% higher than what it was last year, to give you a big. And some of the stats that I had looked up, and some of the things that they were talking about that are still higher is energy and shelter. And the claims that they're making right now is that and if I can bring this up again, I just went blank. That, well, obviously, and gas is going down too, which I'm still trying to figure out why the price of gasoline is. I don't know what that is, but I kind of put that into our group chat today, that I was like, I called. I mean, do you think do you think that's BS, or do you? I mean, if you don't get too personal, but I mean, what's your wallet looking like right now?
It's tight. It's tight across the board on everything. So this isn't just gas prices that I'm going to talk here. There's, because we've seen inflation all over the place. I was watching a video. So one of my guilty pleasures of the influencer stuff that I like to watch. There's I like watching fitness and health and diet videos of, like, one of my guilty pleasures watching like bodybuilders do their day of eating kind of videos and stuff like that. There's a guy I follow named Thomas DeLong, who is Thomas DeLore, my bad.
Mm-hmm.
He is a expert nutritionist and fitness kind of influencer on the YouTube side, but his knowledge and as a dietitian is very scientifically based. It's not just like bro science. He's like very knows the science of nutrition. And I watched him do, this is a video, mind you, from 4 years ago of a budget grocery haul at Aldi, where he is going through Aldi, shopping for a certain diet, particularly on a budget. And he specifically said, I'm here to spend $150 today on, X amount of food. I know for a fact that cart today would be between $225, $250 for the same exact cart that he purchased 4 years ago. When it comes to gas prices, gas is weird in the state of Missouri. It's crazy to me how
it's all
like
over the,
in
it's
Kansas,
all over the place.
Yeah, like in Kansas City, gas currently costs like $2.70 in some places, but like more towards where you guys are, it's like $3.
$2.95 in Louisiana,
which makes no sense to me that there's that much of a discrepancy.
Same company,
same state,
yeah, and same. I mean, it's obviously, but it's different. It's different own, but it's still the same distribute, like Shell and Phillips 66 and all that.
One of the things that has irked me, and we've talked about it, and that has irritated me about a plethora of things from this administration. But as we are rolling into election season, and as we are heading towards re-election, one of the big things that I see when I see pro Biden posts or marketing or campaigning is how many jobs Joe Biden's economy has created.
It hasn't.
And my take on it is Bidenomics have not added jobs. The reason why the number of jobs has jumped, according to Bidenomics, is because people are working more than one job.
Yes.
Individuals that lost jobs during COVID, when COVID shut down, people are now able to work again. It is not that these are new jobs. These were not jobs that were out of thin air. Mm-hmm. This is jobs came back after the outbreak of COVID and after quarantine, but also more Americans are struggling and more Americans are picking up second jobs. That is where the boom of the jobs has come from. But I don't care. I'll see. I saw a video that was talking about how Biden was groceries are cheaper than they've always. No. It is, and you want to know something crazy too? In the state of Missouri, if you want to qualify for SNAP benefits, if you have a family of four, so if you're a family of four and you want to qualify for food stamps, what do you think the maximum amount of money you can make is in a month? Maximum amount of money to qualify for food stamps.
A month.
And this is the most money you can make.
Are you saying are you like saying a family of four?
Family of four. This is the most money that your family can make for a family of four for you to be eligible for food stamps.
2,500.
You're 2,400.
Yeah.
2,400. Here's the thing.
That's impossible.
That's impossible to live. If you have a family of four,
that's impossible.
And let's just do the math. If as a family, 2,400, that is less than $30,000 a year. That's $28,800.
That's less than minimum wage.
Find where a family of four, if a 2-bedroom in the state. If we're talking about if it's a 4-bedroom home with 2 kids and a 2 adults, let's just say it's a 2-bedroom home, where the kids share and the adults share.
Yeah.
Where like
There's
even in small towns,
no.
it's crazy to me that is the, we've talked about this. You've talked about this since my freshman year in one of your classes, is that I will be one of the first to tell you, because I have used them. I appreciate what they do. Social services are a phenomenal thing
Mm-hmm.
for people.
Mm-hmm.
However, they are not meant for you to live off of for the rest of your life.
No.
They are meant
Nope.
for you to get off your feet and to get moving and to work towards success. And they are meant to be, like I said, government assistance should be assistance. It should not be government dependence. You should have government assistance. There's nothing wrong with government assistance. And that's my thing too, is we again, with all the stupid taxes that I pay, if I knew that my taxes, okay, were going towards things like infrastructure, if they were going towards things like affordable healthcare, if they were going towards things like assistance, whether it be food stamps, whether it be grants for small businesses, I love it when my tax dollars go to work for things like that. But again,
not waste.
We've talked about this when it comes to, again, if we throw the government waste bullshit aside, like, I know there's people that disagree, and I'm genuinely like, things like SNAP benefits and WIC. Okay, so WIC is good for, like, and the sad thing about WIC is that it covers jack shit for fruits and vegetables. It covers, jack shit for milk. It covers jack shit for eggs. But mind you, it's assistance, so it's supposed to be helping.
Mm-hmm.
But SNAP benefits, fuck, you can buy,
Give me a
you have to have
hardback.
the sign. You have to have the sign in front of McDonald's. Like, there's signs in front of McDonald's that say, "We take EBT."
That is
McDonald's.
That is
McDonald's.
So ridiculous.
So for me, it's like I believe me, I when it comes to SNAP benefits for people that are they're less fortunate than others, are on hard times, whatever it might be, there's nothing wrong with being on food stamps. I think that those kind of programs are amazing. We should want to help our neighbor. We should want to.
Yes.
But what the problem lies is, for example, if I'm an individual, say I'm a father, right, and I am working to support. I have a spouse at home and I have 2 children, but I make $2,500 a month, okay, and I don't qualify for SNAP benefits because I'm $100 over the maximum, and I'm at Walmart and I'm shopping for groceries and I'm struggling and I'm freaking out because I go, I want my kids to eat. I want my kids to eat healthy. I got to make sure that, but I got to make sure I pay my rent. I got to make sure that I pay for my insurance. I got to make sure that my kid has clothes for school. I got to make sure there's X, Y, Z.
Right.
And then I look over and there's someone that, might not work. And I see their cart is loaded with
crap,
Little Debbie's, Cheetos, Coke, Pepsi, all these things that, and they're I don't know what their allowance might be, but they could have a, $600 a month SNAP allowance to use on whatever they want. I remember, and I know I'm getting long-winded here, but one of the things I'll never forget when Obamacare first came out, one of the things that I will never forget was a very good friend of mine. So if you remember how, and I'm sure you do, because you were an adult living and having to work on paying bills and doing all that shit when Obamacare came out. But one of the big things that a lot of people feared were, and again, this is why I think that there should be an option for universal healthcare? Absolutely, but I still believe that if you can afford private healthcare insurance and you want to buy it, you absolutely should be able to. There should be no telling no, you can't buy your own private health insurance. But I'll never forget where Obamacare, what a lot of people forget, why a lot of people decided not to vote for Obama again or not to vote Democrat when Trump became president, was because when Obamacare came out, people forget if you were at a certain threshold making money, you did not qualify for the free stuff. And even though you didn't qualify for the free stuff,
you got charged out the yang.
Correct. Your people's, and what was crazy was, this is one of the craziest things I'll never forget. I had a friend who I played football with, but was afraid that they weren't going to be able to play football because to play football, you had to have health insurance.
Yep.
And their family could not, they made too much money for Obamacare, but they did not make enough money to pay for private health care,
right?
To pay for their own insurance. Because their premium like tripled, so they couldn't afford that. Mm-hmm. So then you want to know what happened? What people like to forget about? What happened to some people? They were penalized
$2,500
for not having insurance.
Let me give you another example. So a friend of mine who I used to go to church with, he ran his own construction company out of here locally. And so he had a daughter and two sons. He and his wife ran a daycare out of their home, and he had his construction business. So to insure his family of 4 was going to cost, I wanted to say it was like $1,900 or $2,000 a month. Okay? Now, and that's with, I believe it was $1,000 deductible, which is ridiculous. Okay? So he did not get insurance. So what he did, he would put, he made his own, but this is kind of early in the beginning before HSAs, health savings accounts, became a thing. Mm-hmm. And he did his own health savings account. He would put aside about $600 to $700 a month in a health savings account, and he would save, and I mean he did that for, from 2000. Whatever it was, 2008, or when they did, what was Obamacare, 2012, 11 or 12, and he did that for 4 or 5, and he had a ton of cash, and one of the things that he took out of it. So when he did his taxes, you had to have that form. You still have to have that form that says that you have insurance from somebody, okay, and he paid the fine. The fine was $2,500. It was cheaper for him to save up, and then he just paid that for that fine out of his HSA, and then just go about his merry way. And then so he had this thing where his son was playing basketball, and his son had a lung collapse, and they took him into the hospital, and it was, thousands of dollars. But he had this HSA, and he could, and this is the thing that blows my mind. He goes up to the financial office at the hospital and says, if I pay you cash right now, what will you take? And it was over half of what the medical bills were. So when you when you go to the hospital and you say, here's cash, what will you take? They'll give you, but it's just ridiculous. I mean, that was one of the things on the CPI, medical care commodities is up 4.7%. Okay, so compared to this time last year, it's up 4.7%. That's one of the higher things. Some of the high things that are really up high. So if I look down the list, 4.7 on medical, groceries 3.2. Now this, or 3.3. Now get this, food at home is up 3.3%. Away from home, so going out to eat, is up 2.1%. If you're wanting to promote a healthier lifestyle for people, and you're making it cheaper for people to go out and eat than to eat, that's ridiculous. Energy overall is up 5.4%, but natural gas, this is the one that blew me away. Natural gas is down 21.4%. And that really blew my mind. But new vehicles 1.9%, and then the other one was, people.
See, that's bullshit too, though. 1.9%. That's a load of shit because cars are expensive, right? Like they are.
But
more
you also got to
used cars, especially too.
This is over a 12-month period, so in the last
That's
12
fair.
months.
That's
Okay.
fair. Yeah, that's
And
fair.
then people in my side hustle line of work, transportation services, Uber and Lyft are up 9.2% from last year. And
And you want to know who's not making that 9.2%?
are the
The
drivers.
driver.
The drivers are not making that,
Mm.
and that is
I tell you what, man. So because when we were in California, we only had one parking space. We had one car. We were a one car family when we were in California. We're eventually going to be a 2 car family here in Missouri. We're just trying to find the right deal because, like I just said, cars are super expensive. So we're
right.
waiting. So there've been a couple of days when, like, if Tony needed the car, I would just Uber to work because work here is super close. So it was $10 for an Uber. I would, like, not trying to be nosy, but I would
Ask them. Yeah.
like sometimes if the driver would ding ding, like, and they were having a ride come up, I would look and I would see that it would be like $2.85. Do you want to do this ride?
Yep.
And I just in my head I'm like,
Mm-mm.
are you serious? Like,
Yeah.
I was mind blown.
That's a 3, and
You
so
know,
that would be that's a so a 2. It's actually your base rate that a Uber driver will make, and is at 2. It's like 265, and that is for a 3 mile. That's for a 3 mile trip. So what that guy
let me ask
was.
you this: have you ever driven? Because I know you've done Uber and Lyft. Have you ever driven like in an area where it was like peak hours, where
Yes.
like the Ubers and Lyfts were
Yes.
costing people like?
Yes.
Now, does the driver? Do you guys make
I want to tell you something.
peak money
The
or?
best money I ever made was the 2019 St. Patrick's Day. Over at Springfield, I drove for 4 hours and I made $250
Nice.
in 4 hours.
Nice.
And I had never. I mean, it was 4 hours solid of just boom, 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 and I was physically, because when you driving Uber in the day, you get less pay, but it's a better crowd of people. At night, if you drive weekends, you make good money, but you earn that money. You earn that money because I would say it's safe to say 75 to 80% of the time those people are roasted and toasted. And I never had anybody throw up in my car. I had guys like, hey, pull her over. I'm going to get sick. Okay, fine. But, I mean, I haven't done it. And here's the other thing, too. I can tell you why because of gas prices. Because right now, and I'm sure, I think Travis and I have had this conversation before, too. Because Travis, I think, did Uber Eats, I believe. Uber sends out a weekly thing. They are begging for drivers, but people aren't driving for Uber or Lyft right now because the price of gas. For me to go drive in I can drive around here. I'll never get a ride around here. But if I drive to Springfield, Illinois, that'll be about $20 worth of gas to get over there. For me, I want to clear at least $100 before I go home. Now on a weekday, I can put in 8 hours and I'll make about $150. But after, it's just like, okay, is it worth it? Is it really? But St. Louis, they have target areas that they are offering, but it's like, it's Del Mar, it's Forest Park, it's, down Olive, it's Ferguson. I'll drive that during the day. But that's not their peak times. They want people in the evenings. And I'm like, F that. that's
Am I armed? Like, do I get to carry a rifle? Like,
well, you can't. That's another thing. Uber and Lyft. They'll cover, and when you sign on, they'll cover you with their liability insurance if something happens. They'll cover you. But if you're carrying any kind of weapon, forget it. It's done. So, but I mean,
screw that. Like, I would not be driving out there armed. Not armed.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's crazy.
The other big area, and I want to mention this before we end up. So the other high area, and you just mentioned this. The other big increase from this time last year, 6.7% increase in shelter. Okay? So, rent, mortgage, whatever. I don't know what we had this discussion a few weeks ago. I think Travis and I did, but I don't even know what interest rates are at right now. I believe in 7.5, somewhere in that neighborhood, probably.
Yeah.
But the price for, and you bring all of this in. There is, Biden is giving these speeches. Saw live coverage pop up on Facebook today. I didn't watch it. He was giving a speech somewhere, trying to sing the praises of Bidenomics, and his poll numbers are sliding and sliding fast. And I didn't, of course, me and Travis all said 5 months ago when Trump was in the up neck deep in all of his indictments and everything, you're like, there's no way he's going to win. Now you're like, well, and all of his latest gaffes that he had. By the way, and I'll say this, if you want a good laugh, watch a YouTube of Al Roker talking to Joe Biden on the day of the Macy's Day Parade. It is the most confuzzled 3 minutes. I mean, Al Roker is trying to carry on some kind of conversation with Joe, and it's just like talking to your aged grandfather, and he has no idea what you're talking about. It was so bad and awkward and just cringy, and you're like, oh, it was rough. But hey, one last thing, and I did share this with you today, and I came across this myself today. If you are looking for a way to make a side hustle, there is a pest control company in North Carolina that is offering $2,500 to homeowners who will let them infest their home with American cockroaches for 30 days. If you do that, they will try their pest control method, and if after 30 days it doesn't work, then they will use the more conventional methods. But they are offering $2,500 to infest your home with cockroaches. Man, if I'm hard enough up, and there's a link. If you want the link, let me know, because they're doing this up until December 31st. So if you need to make $2,500, we can get you hooked up.
Yourself a rental property, and at least you'll get a month mortgage paid for.
There you go.
That's crazy.
That's great.
That's crazy.
Well, this was fun, man. This was good. This was
definitely a good one.
That's good.
I'm excited to have Travis back on, but always it's great to talk to you.
Yep.
I'm like I said, it's nice that things have kind of settled down a little bit, and
Travis will get there. Travis will get there soon. It's just going to
yes, he is experiencing what I got to experience just a couple weeks ago. Yeah. But no, definitely, like always, great to talk to you. To our listeners, thank you guys so much. Make sure to be a friend, tell a friend. Catch us where you can, and hopefully we'll end up on a couple of your guys' Spotify Wrapped this year for most listened to podcasts in your top 4, 5, 3, whatever it might be. But we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Voice of Reason podcast. Be sure to check out our other content on Facebook, YouTube,